flowing in their veins. Mackie and Judd on SKOR North and SKORNorth.com.
As far as this opportunity and the many others that will come this year, I mean, I never take it for granted getting to talk to these guys before we go out, getting to talk to them at halftime about what we're going to try to do to go win a game. These are opportunities that I'll improve every single time, Chris, and ultimately when it's all said and done, I don't take it for granted that I get to lead this operation, and to have the players and coaches that I do, it makes me real comfortable. You know, it takes away some of the nerves going into it because you know you got great people around you and great players around you.
Yeah, Judd gives that same speech to us before as the sports dad, the leader here.
I never take it for granted, guys. Group. I never take it, not one day. I get to talk to you guys before the show, during the show, after the show. Never take that for granted. Text thread, yep.
Bunch of Judd notes.
Pictures.
Yep.
Notes off games.
Judd gets to ask what the schedule is when it becomes too confusing, the back and forth between Declan and I. So
I have no idea sometimes.
Judd will just wait for us to get done, and then he'll say, okay, so what's the schedule?
I will.
Never take that for granted.
Never take that for granted that I might be wrong about something. So the best way is to make sure.
Well, it's Wednesday, and we do write that down and do all this
Hey, I forget some stuff sometimes. I do.
Oh, man. So this is Mackie and Judd here, Monday Statements edition, and a Buffoon of the Week coming your way. If you want a deep, deep dive also into the first preseason game, Purple Daily has you covered on that front here on this Monday. But let's start with some Vikings-related statements from the weekend here. And I'll do the honors. I'll hit the first wayward tee shot. I would trade Alexander Mattison before the season. And I say this with all due respect to a fantastic backup running back. But here are a few of the reasons why I would, look to make this trade. I don't think you're not going to get like a second round. You'll get like a day 3 pick. But he is a free agent in 6 months. With Dalvin Cook's current contract and with the depth you have on the team, there is zero chance the Vikings re-sign Alex Mattison once he hits free agency. I think someone's going to give him a shot to be a starting running back. And as you survey the landscape of injuries and other teams that may lack some depth, is there a team that might give you a 5th-round pick in a pinch for Alex Mattison? You know, I think with the guys that you have behind him, so Dalvin Cook is one of the best running backs in the league. He's going to miss a few games, as he always does. But the way that Chandler and Kene Nwangwu have looked, both in the training camp practices and in that first preseason game, you are blessed with depth here. And I would hate to see the Vikings try and sneak a Chandler onto the practice squad and whiff on it, and some other team picks him up, and now you're without Chandler and Alex Mattison in free agency after the season. So, like, I want Chandler and Nwangwu on this team going forward. Do I want to keep 4 running backs and C.J. Ham as a 5th, or would I rather only have 3 running backs, C.J. Ham, and then maybe an extra wide receiver? The numbers get weird on this route. I think you could unclog some things by exploring trade options for Alex Mattison, and I've been saying that for like a month. Yesterday only went to further solidify where I stand with this.
I've gone back and forth on this a bit because Cook is going to get hurt. Like, I think the question now going into each year with Dalvin Cook is this: how many games is he going to miss? Is he going to miss 6? Is he going to miss 4? Is it going to be 2? And Mattison is very good at what he does. But here is where I would agree with at least exploring a potential trade. And that is, I'm not going to trade him for a draft pick because, like, you're right. You'd probably get a 4th or 5th or something. But if there is a purpose to trade him, and I guess what I'm getting at is if Garrett Bradbury struggles, and in practice he's not been great so far, and you can involve Mattison in a trade for a center, I'm much more on board then. So I'm not going to trade him for the sake of trying to get like a 5th round pick. But if he could be a key component to a trade to get me help at a position at which I might clearly need help for my quarterback and my offense, I'm at least giving that some strong consideration.
Okay.
Would you trade him for an established backup quarterback?
You'd have to kick in something else, probably.
Yeah, and I think so, Dex. I think I could probably get a backup quarterback who I could plug in for like a late round draft pick. I'd consider it, but look, because Cook is going to get hurt. I'm not anxious to trade Mattison, but it makes some sense. And the thing, too, is as far as roster construction goes, I'm very eager to see offensively what this team does as far as keeping players at each position. Because I do think that that's going to change a bit. And I do think that there's going to be some decisions made with young offensive players who, to Phil's point, this coaching staff doesn't feel that they can get onto the practice squad and doesn't want to lose said player. So some people are going to dismiss this completely. They're going to say, you know what this is? The Buzz Factory, boys. The Buzz Factory. Buzz Factory. Oh, Buzz Factory. Buzz Factory. We're making up stuff. But often we make up stuff and then it comes true. So I do think it's worthy of a discussion. And I'm willing to bet internally they will at least have some talks about roster construction here and about potential trade chips like this.
Hey, have you ever asked Chip Scoggins about Ty Chandler? Because he spent 4 years with Chip's Tennessee Volunteers, and then he spent it because Chip watches all those Tennessee games. He's a big
loves his balls,
big Go Vols guy, and then he went to North Carolina, went to the ACC as a second time around senior, and that's where he really exploded. He was just kind of part of a rotation in Tennessee, but over 1,000 yards, 6 yards a carry, 13 touchdowns in his fifth year in college. So. There are some plays in preseason where you got to take them with a grain of salt. Hey, it's a bunch of dudes running around against backups and vanilla defenses. But then there are some where you can say, oh, Brian Asamoah knifing through the defense as a 225-pound sort of hybrid safety linebacker. I don't care what that play was. I don't care who the players on the field were. That guy was knifing through traffic and fast and making a great tackle. You can learn something from that. And the other one that stood out to me was when Ty Chandler gets the ball on one of his numerous gashing runs last night, and he makes 2 jump cuts and boom, hits the hole. Like, I don't care who's on defense. I don't care what the play call was. I don't care that it's preseason.
Second level.
That guy knows what he's doing at running back. I'm not saying he's going to be Dalvin Cook, but I am saying that he's on my team, and Alex Mattison doesn't need to be blocking, I guess the roster pecking order for guys like him. So we'll see. Ton of depth at that position, and maybe you're right. Maybe it's not for a 5th round pick. Maybe there's another position you can find some team to do a player for player swap. Whatever it is, I'm open for business the next 3 weeks.
Declan, go ahead.
All right, my first statement off the preseason game, I will go with this one. I will say it's a solid first step. Solid first step in the Kevin O'Connell area. I thought the skill position groups that we just talked about, the running backs were obviously phenomenal. Yeah, there might be a conversation where Alexander Mattison maybe is expendable, but regardless, they have #depth at running back. Man, they got depth at wide receiver. For God's sakes, Amir Smith-Marset is going to be the 4th wide receiver on this option. Olabisi Johnson was still targeted a ton. They had Jalen Naylor made a couple of nice plays. They have a lot of depth at their skill position players. I also thought you saw your rookies from this draft class make some immediate impact. Ed Ingram might end up winning the dang starting job out of training camp and through these preseason games. Lewis seems kind of on the odd man out from being a starter per se, but he's still going to find ways to get out on the field, and I thought he looked like one of the better players, too, on the field yesterday. Andrew Booth is going to be learning a little bit. Andrew Booth, who kind of I think he got flagged for the illegal contact, which I have a statement on later on. But I thought in general, the Vikings took a really solid first step with their first preseason game under Kevin O'Connell. And Kellen Mond is cleared 1 bar. He cleared 1 bar. He was not a train wreck. He might just be QB3. He might be QB2. But he cleared some type of bar that says, okay, I can see why that guy was a 4-year starter at Texas A&M and why he was a day 2 pick. So I think it was a solid first step in the Kevin O'Connell era of Vikings football.
Yeah. Agree completely. Yeah, and I was amazed. I shouldn't be. But when Twitter lit up, this looks awful. These teams this is the whole point, right? Like, these games this is not how did the Vikings look as a team? We're not there yet, okay? We are too, how do individuals look? And I'm with Dex. I thought that this was extremely instructive, good and bad, but at least it helped you see things in a game. So yeah, I think it's so funny when we get hung up on the actual game itself. Oh my God, how could they not do this? How could they not do that? Oh, okay, who cares? It's a preseason game. The whole point is to learn from it.
I will say it's a little problematic. They haven't won a preseason game since 2019. Okay, yeah, they've only played 5. But let's put a stop to the losing. I don't want a culture of losing here. Okay? Let's go win a preseason game. Someone showed the side-by-side, the newspaper headlines of, what was it? Was it 2008? What was the year the Lions went 0-16? And the preseason headline was, perfection, 4-0 in the preseason, big headline. And then at the end of the season, it was embarrassment, 0-16.
I think it was Dan Lebitard that said that the most wrong he has ever been was because of that Lions team. He thought that Lions team was actually going to do something, and they ended up being 0-16.
Why do you ever have faith in that team?
I have no idea.
There's never been a reason. Again, this year, I see all of these fans are like, oh, the Detroit Lions are going to be for, you know what? Prove it to me.
Dude, they're singing karaoke together. I mean, they look cohesive
Dan
as
Campbell.
a team.
Danny Campbell, man. Going to melt down in games.
All right, over to Judd.
Okay, my statement is off a coaching decision a couple of times, especially one time in this game, and it's more of a hope that this is not going to be a regular occurrence. And my statement to Kevin O'Connell is this. Very simple. Go for it. So the Vikings, I believe when they scored their first points on a Joseph field goal, they were like at the 3, right? They were essentially at the goal line. It was 4th down. And O'Connell said post-game, when asked about that very thing, I wanted to get the points. And you know what? Preseason, again, that's fine. I hope the rule of thumb when you have Jefferson, Thielen, go down that entire list, Cousins, Cook playing, I hope the rule of thumb is going to be in 2022, we're going to go for it. So I'm just throwing it out there that I don't care. It was an exhibition game. Your best players not playing. But I would think that Kevin O'Connell, being a new school coach, is very much, if that situation presents itself on September the 11th against the Packers, going to say, hey, 8, stay out there.
I've learned a lesson about perceived new school coaches, though. I wouldn't just automatically say, hey, he's a young guy. He's a new school coach. He's under the age of 40. Therefore, he's going to be analytically minded when it comes to going for it.
Yeah.
PJ Fleck is one of the most conservative new school coaches you'll ever see, right in front of our eyes every single Saturday coaching this Gophers team. And he constantly he'll punt on 4th and 1. He will not think about timeout management. So I'm just saying, just because a coach is young doesn't mean that he's going to be aggressive on 4th down or going for it on 4th and whatever from inside the 5 or the 10-yard line. So I think in the preseason it's possible he just wanted Greg Joseph. I just want to make sure Greg Joseph gets out there a couple times and get some feel good kicks. But we won't really know until week 1 or week 2.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's my statement.
All right.
Go for it.
My next statement here. I only go when I hear the Batman sound effect. My statement is Kellen Mond received more positive reinforcement in one preseason game than he probably received in 9 months with Mike Zimmer, who trashed him at a post-game press conference for 3 snaps against the Packers, and he was terrible. Don't get me wrong, but after one of the touchdown passes, he jogs back to the sidelines, and Kevin O'Connell, KOC, is waiting there with a pat on the helmet. That's all these guys want sometimes, okay? The Gen Z, millennials, positive reinforcement, some positive vibes. We just want to know that you care about us, that you're invested in our future, okay? And so I don't need, a big bear hug or anything, just a pat on the helmet telling me that I'm doing a nice job. And you know what? It can go a long way. And Kellen Mond probably feels a lot better about himself after last night and the positive performance and reinforcement than he has at any point since he's been drafted. So, thanks KOC for the positive reinforcement.
Just a pat?
Maybe a little pat on the butt. Just any sort of, hey, I see you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yes.
Unbelievable. My next statement is this illegal contact hoopla is going to ruin some games.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to ruin some games. In fact, can I just write? I don't want to wait for Wednesday. Can I write it down right now? If you don't mind, can I write this down?
I think the rule
right
is
now?
if you're gonna write something down outside the window of Wednesday, it has to be a home run or a touchdown. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess I'll count it for this show since we're on Mackey and Judd. You guys tell me if this is enough for a home run.
Okay.
The Vikings will be flagged for illegal contact in the final 2 minutes of a game, and it will result in a loss.
Oh yeah, that's a touch.
In
home
what?
Run
In what? In week 1?
In the regular season. Do you want me to shorten? You claim it's going to be not a thing after like
No.
week 9.
I'm just thinking. So I think the Vikings because there was only like 36 of these penalties called across the league all year. So and the Vikings only had like 2. So you're saying that they'll have one for sure, but specifically it'll happen in the final 2 minutes, and it will subjectively cost them a game,
result in a loss.
So we might need a little more clarity on. So it'll happen in a game that they lose, or it'll happen and it will be a reason why they lose.
Yes, I think the latter. It'll be a reason why they lose. It'll cost them the game.
The points will be scored off of that call.
Yeah.
And we will subjectively debate that if needed, but that's definitely a home run if that happens.
Yeah, and every year they do this. They find a new rule to initiate. I kind of understand it. Hockey does the same thing every year. They did it with face-offs. They did it with cross-checking over the last few years. It's become super annoying. And Judd's probably right that maybe by week 10, 11, they'll kind of weed this out a little bit.
Right,
and maybe if they're calling it so much in the preseason, which I believe the Vikings were flagged at least twice, if not 3 times for it yesterday in the preseason, that DBs will adjust. I just don't know what else a defensive back can do in today's NFL. It's just such an NFL, and I hate to be like old man, like my defensive backs used to grab them right by the horns and pull them down. Like I just don't know what they can do at this point. If illegal contact's going to be just initiated in the first 5 yards, and then afterwards it just becomes super annoying and convoluted. So my statement is illegal contact is going to ruin some football games.
Yeah, that's another thing. I brought this up on Purple Daily, but I don't know that fans were pining for more penalties. I also don't know that fans were pining for it to be harder on defenses to guard wide receivers in today's NFL. But here we are.
That's what they want. And they've actually changed it now. It's not called, as of 2022, point of emphasis. It's now called point of clarification. Seifert told me this. He's like, they have now changed it because fans got sick of point of emphasis. So the league said, oh, okay, we will change it to clarification so you will buy in now.
Well, what are we clarifying?
I don't know. It's just hilariously funny.
They didn't change the rule.
We're clarifying that we're going to throw the flags a lot. But instead of emphasizing.
If they were changing the rule, it would be a clarification, right? But if they're just looking to enforce the rule more often, it would be emphasis on the rule that already exists.
Don't argue with the National Football League. Roger Goodell's got this, all right?
Oh, my God. All right, back to Judd.
Okay. My statement, a lesson learned. This guy has been good in camp and as recently as last week got some first-team reps, but he had a tough day, and it is the beginning of a lesson learned. Andrew Booth Jr., who on one play was called for a PI and a face mask. He was called for, I think, probably at least 3 penalties. And look, this is exactly what happens when you come from college to the pros at cornerback. Because in the college, the point of clarification is not nearly as clarified. So you can sort of grab guys late, hit them late. You're also going up against a receiver core that is often good but far from great. And so this was yesterday when it comes to Booth, who I guarantee you now won't start, but this was the beginning of the lessons learned. And I think outside of quarterback, I think cornerback qualifies as one of the toughest places to learn in the pros because the jump is so huge and the athletic ability of the receivers combined with the penalties called changes drastically. So this was a lesson learned for Andrew Booth Jr.
He's a little, I'd rather have my cornerback be Xavier Rhodes-like and just be a little handsy and aggressive because, A, they're not going to call it every time, even with the point of clarification on illegal contact. I think it's easier to smooth some of that stuff out than a guy that's just clueless and reactionary and stuff. So I guess we'll see it. We'll see it play out. But
there goes the ball! No!
Wacky waving arm too, man.
Whoa!
Tire guy and I think, oh.
All right, my next statement is the Ed Ingram era is upon us.
Oh, wow.
The savior of the right guard position has arrived. It has been 6-7 long years. I don't even know how many right guards they've floated through here. But Ed Ingram, I'm ready to say it, after a couple weeks of practice and one preseason game.
Yes.
He's the real deal. He knows what he's doing. He's a massive human being. Second-round pick. And I don't know if they make the official change this week against San Francisco in the joint practices, but he will eventually be taking the lion's share of reps and then all of the reps at right guard with the first team. This is happening in the next few weeks.
I think you're right, and this is one too where what you're saying is not based off of one game. The practices do. Like, he has slowly but surely been showing enough to climb the depth chart, and I think you're right. And I'm trying to think back. Who was the last right guard who had any consistency here? Herrera?
Oh, man.
Like, I'm trying to think back to the right guards. Dex, can you think of it?
Well,
East was who was in 27 that got hurt, right?
Nick Easton.
Easton.
Brandon Fusco, didn't he play right guard at a
Solid.
decent level for a couple
Yeah, I
years?
think
But for
he
how
was
long?
solid.
Like, I'm trying to think of the last time that we basically had in this town a right guard for the Vikings who you said, you know what, from year to year, that guy is going to be solid.
Well, even Anthony Herrera wasn't it like 3 years? And then
I guess three years is good as far as I'm concerned. But yeah,
well,
I'd have to look back. When's the last time that this team had a right guard who you could sort of put in pen and say that guy's fine?
we should do at some point either on.
I'll look that up.
You know what? Actually, this might be a fun pecking order for the Tuesday episode.
Okay.
I will. We can do an ode to Vikings right guards now that Ed Ingram has arrived to save the position. I will do this deep dive,
Okay.
and I will
cool.
rank obscure Vikings right guards for Purple Daily or for pecking order on Tuesday.
All right.
Okay.
That's perfect, actually.
Real quick before we continue on here on this, I also have a Buffoon of the Week football related for you guys. Let's shout out the official dog food of Mackie and Judd. It's called Nutrisource, and you'll see on the screen here a couple very happy dogs here. Look at this. This is this is Stella on the left, and then who is Stella's excited friend on the right?
Ryder.
Okay.
Ryder, and listen, I'm going to tell you right now, he is Dawn's best friend's dog, but he does not want to leave the Zolgad house because of the treats, because of the food. He is a convert too. We are converting dogs on a daily basis on this show to a healthy and happy lifestyle, Phil Mackey.
Yes, third-generation family-owned and operated out of Perham, Minnesota. Nutrisource dog food is all about digestion and gut health with their Good for Life system. Get the nutrients your dog needs for those Tootsie Roll poops that we all are striving for. NutrisourcePetFoods.com to find a retailer near you. NutrisourcePetFoods.com, the official dog food of Mackie and Judd and Stella and Maya. Also a shout out to our friends at Equity Partners who are here to help make the house selling process 100% hassle-free. And with their WeHab program, what they want to do is increase the value of your home or maximize the value of your home through simple fixes or total remodels. And then as you go through this process, you can put offers in on your next home, non-contingent on the sale of yours, which again is massive to not have to time that up. Learn more at equitypartnersmn.com, equitypartnersmn.com, 612-999-2244. All right, any final Viking statements from you guys here on this Monday?
No, I like that they rest the starters. There was no need, I guess, to put out, the I know Kirk had COVID, but there was no need to put out the Jefferson, the Thielens. I did applaud, though, that they put the starting offensive line out there. I thought that was important to get both the defensive and the offensive line at least, I think, 5 to 10 snaps, through the first two series to get some type of continuity. I mean, last year, for God's sakes, didn't the Vikings start off with 2 back-to-back false starts on Oli Udoh? So just some type of continuity in the offensive line was good. And yes, Ed Ingram, who already shouted out, it already has the leg up to potentially be a starter. I like that they rested the key position guys.
Yeah.
Good move.
All right.
Awesome.
There you go. If you want the full Kellen Mond deep dive, we argued. It's like 20-25 minutes on
Smart.
Purple Daily on this Monday. Yeah, put the boxing headgear on. Sometimes people think you guys just you guys just agree on everything. Well, we agree on Kirk Cousins largely, and that takes up a lot of our conversation. But yeah, you can pick which side you're on this Kellen Mond debate over on Purple Daily. Okay, it's time now for the buffoon of the week here on Mackey and Judd. And the buffoon of the week is none other than the Washington Commanders president, Jason Wright.
That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
So sometime recently, Scott Abraham from 7 News DC sat down with Commanders quarterback Carson Wentz at training camp for just one of those kind of classic, you got the TV chairs and they got the little polo shirts on. We're going to do a little interview for the 10 o'clock news and put a couple minutes up. And so Scott Abraham, I don't know anything about him, but this dude does not pull punches when asking questions, apparently. So after listing, again, he's sitting right next to Carson Wentz. They're on camera doing this thing. And after listing off some of the reasons why people criticize Wentz, he says, hey, the pervasive narrative about you is this and this and this, and he's just listing off all the things. Then he says, Philly didn't want you, Indy didn't want you. Essentially, why will this be any different? Which I think are all pretty fair questions. I think it might be a little jarring in that you don't usually get that pointed of a line of questioning.
It was pretty harsh. Yes,
it was.
These are all things that people wonder, but usually, quite frankly, a lot of these reporters that have to be there every day don't have the cojones to phrase a question like that because they need to keep relationships alive, right? Mm-hmm. So anyhow, Jason Wright, the president of the Commanders, decided, I'm going to go on Twitter and let people know what I think of this because there's nothing else that I need to worry about with this franchise at all at the current moment. I'm going to go and make a big deal out of a line of questioning from a reporter. And he says, I recognize you've made a living on childlike provocation, but it needs to be called out. Don't expect special access, and good luck building rapport with the players. He continues, it's not that the guys can't take criticism. Just be a journalist and follow standard practices. Others have found a way to do both. I think if you're the president of a dumpster fire organization like the Washington Commanders, maybe spend less time trying to demean reporters for asking honest yet aggressive questions about your underperforming starting quarterback and more time trying to fix the dumpster fire organization. That's just me. So I'm going to name Jason Wright the buffoon of the week here on Mackey and Judd. I saw that Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk chimed in basically saying this is the problem with team-run media is that these guys get asked softball questions and these puff stories all the time and video pieces that when someone actually comes in with pointed critical questions, it's jarring to the players. It's even jarring to some fans. Like, well, wait a second, that's not the way that I usually see these media interactions going. So, I don't know. What did you guys think when you saw this come across?
The Commanders shouldn't say a thing about anything. That's the problem. If it's a well-respected... Now, one, if it's a smart franchise, they might call the guy up and talk about it. Because the questions were phrased harshly, okay? So, if you don't like that, that's fine. You have every right to call the guy up and be like, yeah, and that's fine. I'm not a huge fan of that, but that's the professional way. What's unprofessional and very Commanders-like, and everything Daniel Snyder runs is just buffoon territory, is to have this guy whose franchise has had just massive problems outside of football, too. Like the football dumpster fire part is a small part of a story about a team that arguably should be stripped from the guy who owns said team, a la what took place a few years back with Donald Sterling and the Clippers. So, yeah, to me, for them to be coming out and criticizing anybody about anything, hypocritical, stupid, and again shows they have no idea what they're doing.
And look, I think the team run or media stuff that can exist. That stuff can always exist. But I think the issue is then everyone then also as part of the TV crew or part of not wanting to ruffle any feathers, it just kind of trickles down to them, and then they kind of feel like, oh, I want the respect and I want the access and all that stuff. I think all of these people who come in and ask, hard-hitting questions like this guy did to Carson Wentz, then should still be allowed to do that. And for the Washington Commanders guy to basically president come out and say that, which is the Commanders are kind of a joke as it is, kind of buffoonery, dude. So yes, it very much is a nail in the coffin of a buffoon of the week for that guy.
Well, and teams want media to be supportive. You hear that all the time, right? That like a new coach will get hired or a general manager, and they will make a plea to the community and the fans and the media to be supportive of what they're trying to do.
Right.
And that's not the role of third-party media. It is the role of your own media. If you're Vikings.com or Commanders.com, it's technically just an extension of your brand. And so, yeah, you're not going to get hard-hitting questions from Commanders.com guy or gal. But it's just, I don't know how we've landed on this expectation that third-party media, which really I'm not saying that sports media is anything groundbreaking in terms of affecting the world, but
right,
third-party media is there to ideally, in some part, hold entities accountable when needed. And if there's any franchise that needs to be held accountable in the NFL, it would probably be the Washington Commanders over the past couple of years, right?
Right.
So,
well, and Carson Wentz has sucked. Like, Carson Wentz has been a huge bust.
Yeah.
I think where the conversation goes to me that's intriguing, though, is this. So I actually, before the Vikings game, sat down and watched a good portion of the Fox 9 pregame show produced by them. And so Kwesi was on, and they reran something that I think appeared on Vikings.com with the Vikings.com guy, where he drives Kwesi around in a golf cart and talks about Kwesi, which is fine. And for their site, it's very, very smart. But they reran that as like the Kwesi presence. New GM, first game, I would like, and I'm not saying that Jim Rich is going to sit down and interrogate Kwesi, but I would like somebody from outside the organization to sit down and talk to him about football. Like, I don't think that's that much as a fan in this case to ask. Yeah. Like, let's talk about how's training camp? What looks good? What have you learned? Like, it doesn't have to be the Inquisition, but I think it does. But I would like personally something that gives me a feel for the team. There are times where it's fine to do Kwesi, your personal life, blah, blah, blah. Those are great. But it's football time right now, you guys. It's football time, and I want to sink my teeth into a feast of football conversation.
Well,
so that's where I get frustrated.
But there's also the balance of now we're going down a path here, but maybe the audience responds better to more of the, hey, behind the scenes in a golf cart with Kwesi. I'm sure Fox 9's trying to balance that. But to your general point, yeah. I mean, Kwesi was asked some football questions by the USA Today. Those quotes were quote unquote taken out of context, which they weren't. He said what he said. I think he was just mad about the blowback, and then he's kind of shut it down over the last month because
correct.
He doesn't want to piss off the Rams anymore. So anyhow,
or Kirk Cousins
or Kirk, yes, go on the apology tour. So there is your buffoon of the week here on Mackie and Judd.